Good. I think we are live there. Let me confirm that it's all sending the data out to everywhere. It looks like we are. Good. So let's dive in. Welcome to Revolution Network. This is Dr. Jason Dean, your source for health, freedom, and knowledge. And today I'm with a gentleman who I have watched for a long time, have not met, been very awe-inspired by his work out there in this topic that we're going to dive into, but just in general what the world is going on today. And he is a powerful dude who is a patriot, who is working for the people, but also for the kids. Joshua Coleman, how are you, sir? Welcome to the show.
I'm good. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
I'm good. You're a busy man, which is awesome because you are doing a lot of great things out there, and a lot of people know you. As soon as I said you'd be on the show, people got really, really excited because you're just doing a lot of good things for humanity. We appreciate it a bunch. And obviously, we're in kind of a two-phase situation right now because obviously in the last 6 weeks, things have skyrocketed out of control, which we'll get to in a little bit. But before that, you were already on fire because you were taking up the vaccine issue. And when I first learned about you, as I said before we jumped on, was I didn't exactly know your whole story as I watched you. I just thought you were an amazing advocate for this work. But give us a little backstory on how you actually end up in this world, because you don't really just end up in this world. Something has to have happened. So give us some backstory on that for all the viewers.
All right. Well, I had heard some things about vaccines, when I was younger. I think I had heard about the autism link from vaccinations. And, I found it interesting, but, that was not anything that really, polarized me at the time because it was just not something that was affecting me. But then when I had my first child in 2009, I kind of thought back and was having to make decisions about vaccination. And again, like the only thing I had heard about was the autism thing. And I didn't really know if that was true or how common that was, if it was even true at all. And I started to research before making the decisions to vaccinate my child, and quickly just got overwhelmed and really didn't find a lot of negative type things when I was doing my research. I would say I probably didn't research more than a couple days, for a few hours a day, and
right.
and sort of decided to just listen to the doctor. The doctor went to medical school for this; he should know best. And so it was his. He basically said, let's vaccinate him to the CDC guidelines, and so that's what we did. And then, cut to about 17 months later, my son gets around to vaccines, and not long after that, he woke up one day completely unable to walk. His legs just had stopped working, and I took him into the hospital immediately, and that's when they performed an MRI and saw that it was a condition called transverse myelitis. Mm-hmm. And the neurologist says to me, "Has he recently been vaccinated?" And I said, "Yes, he has." And he said, "Well, this is a known adverse reaction of vaccination," which was interesting because nobody ever told me that this was a possibility when I was vaccinating him for things like measles, which classified as a rash.
Right.
That he could be paralyzed and have a spinal cord injury. So, I did take him to the East Coast. I live in California. I had taken him to the East Coast in Baltimore to Johns Hopkins, one of the nicest hospitals, for treatment. And that's when they had really narrowed it down to being caused by vaccination for sure. And but they were telling me, it's 1 in a million. It's 1 in several million chance. You just kind of hit the lottery.
Right.
And I grew up watching Star Trek, and there's that theme, that ongoing theme in Star Trek that, the good of the many outweigh the good of the few. And so I thought, okay, my son took the hit, so many people could be vaccinated and be protected against disease. And that's how I felt for a few years as I was doing so many treatments, trying to recover my child who's now permanently in a wheelchair from the waist down from that injury. So after a few years, now I have like this interest in vaccines because I know that that's what's harmed my child. So when there's a news report or something in the newspaper, now I'm reading every article I come across, and I'm watching every program. And I keep reading and seeing things in the news that I know aren't true. Now, I have like very little education on vaccination, but I know a few things. And I'm hearing them say things in the news and reading things that are positively false. And that's when I started to look more and more into the vaccine program, and I found out that there's so much I didn't know, and a lot of real carelessness that goes on. I mean, it's I was fine with what I knew before, that my child got injured so all these other people could be saved from big bad diseases. So I was happy with that. I was not looking for something else to believe, but when I started to look into the program and see how careless they were, I thought, oh man, and that's when I decided to start getting involved.
And you went down the rabbit hole, man, didn't you?
I did, and like they call it the rabbit hole because you keep going down, you keep learning more and more and more, and I'm still learning, even now.
Wow. And so, being in California now, and I'm going to jump a little bit ahead because obviously now everyone knows your story, but you were I mean, I actually found you and noticed you, obviously through friends and everything, was when SB 277 and 276 were there. So, what spiraled you, or what drove you, I should say, what drove you into this kind of activism? Because you didn't just kind of dabble in it like some people do, and I'll go to a rally. You are full on head into it, where, I mean, you're a rock star. What, obviously your kid was injured, and that's horrible, and it sets off a parental survival mechanism. But how did you take it to the level you took it? Because you're nationally known at this point within this community. So give us some of the mindset on that.
So it was baby steps. I actually I wasn't aware of this fight. I wasn't aware that there were activists fighting this and that there were organizations and groups. I had no idea. I just, I was doing my research and learning more and more. And then I heard about a documentary called Trace Amounts,
yep,
which is about thimerosal in vaccinations. And so I saw that movie, and when I went to that film, there was a lot of people in the theater who had vaccine-injured children. And that's when I started to realize, maybe this isn't one in a million. There's all these other people. And that's when I got hooked up with other activists. And then SB 277, which was the California bill to take away the philosophical exemption from vaccinations, I thought I better get involved. And so I had met an activist named Laura Hayes, and she kind of clued me into the things going on, and so yeah, I started off right away. I do videography, so I started shooting rallies, speeches, and educational parts on vaccines, because it's sort of my perspective where I'm saying, I didn't have informed consent. I really, the doctors didn't tell me that the vaccines could do any kind of harm to my child. Couldn't be paralyzed, possibly die, or any of these things. No matter how rare they might say it is, they didn't even tell me about that stuff. So that's sort of what I'm trying to do at this point. And so, yeah, I'm creating a lot of video content, attending hearings. There was also a hearing that I actually testified at for a bill called AB 1117. And that was a bill they were trying to pass in 2015 where it would require it would give Medi-Cal doctors a big bonus, financial bonus, if they had babies fully immunized by 2 years of age. So I testified and spoke against that bill, and that bill actually went down that year, fortunately. And then, I just kind of kept hustling. And then in 2016, there was another documentary released called Vaxxed, from cover up to catastrophe. And those filmmakers, as they were touring the country with this movie, a lot of the audience that was showing up was just like the one that I experienced at Trace Amounts. They're people who were negatively impacted by the vaccine program. They have an interest. They're showing up to these screenings. So the producers, after the Q&As, people would come over and tell them their story. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to my child after vaccination. And so one of the producers had the idea of, maybe we should start documenting these. We should record these. So I joined that tour, and I worked every single day on the tour. And I mean, Monday through Monday, it was all day, every day, for I think almost 4 months at the end of 2016, and we just kept shooting these interviews of people telling their story, and different vaccines, different injuries, some of the same injuries, a lot of, depending on the time that a child may have received a vaccination, and a particular vaccination, it might be a very similar story that we're hearing from other people. And so we started putting those out. We had made national news at one point where the district attorney in Texas came forward to talk about his son's vaccine injury. And so that was, I mean, I created almost 800 interviews out of that tour. So that was sort of nonstop for a while. And but then I started to realize, the shadow banning began.
Yep.
And of course, I'm sure you know what that is, and the viewers who don't know what it is, it's like they don't delete your stuff on social media, Facebook and YouTube, but what they do is they minimalize the circulation. And so you see it happen because, as you put out these videos, you know how much your stuff the average tracking of different videos, and all of a sudden when you're not getting the amount of views that you were getting a week ago, but you have double the audience. You're saying, wait a second here, what's going on? Or the the likes and the comments are just dropping. And people are saying, I have USC First on Facebook, but I never see your things. And so that's when I started to, started hitting the streets, per se, like going out with large signs with like bullet points about vaccines. Which is sort of a campaign I started just almost a year ago with my partner Olivia Mikos, we're calling it V is for Vaccine. And so we go out with these giant signs that have just bullet points about vaccination. And these are things that are not controversial. We don't talk about vaccines and autism. That's something that, is considered not quite known.
Right.
People argue each way. But we just go out and talk about things that we do know about vaccinations. Things like vaccine makers are exempt from liability. In 1986, the vaccine manufacturers were completely exempted of liability, which should be disturbing to somebody to know that the people that are manufacturing the product that's going to be injected into your baby, oftentimes on the first day of life, they're not responsible, which is, disturbing, because you want to think that there's an incentive to make these things as safe as possible. And when you find out that incentive's not there, it's scary, and that's, a reason why people don't know it, because they know they'll be scared. And there's, other bullet points on the signs like vaccines are not placebo safety tested.
Right.
And anybody who doesn't know what a placebo safety test is, it's like if you have 300 people in a safety study for a medicine, you give half the people the medicine and the other half you don't give the medicine. And then you track both groups to see, if one group has more injuries or how they're doing. And then that's how you can find out if a medicine is doing harm or doing good, all these things. With vaccines, they give both sides a vaccine. And usually it's got a lot of the same ingredients in the vaccine. So let's just say injecting aluminum into the body is doing harm to your body, which most vaccines, a lot of them have aluminum in them. If you have aluminum in both sides, it's going to balance the injuries and deaths, and that's how they come up with these things and saying vaccines are not very harmful. So yeah, those are just some of the bullet points that we put out with that, and really, yeah, I'm just very hyper focused on educating people, on the things they don't know.
So so the great thing I point out about that I see, and from I've seen it from your pictures and your posts, obviously, but also getting it straight from you, is you're doing it the best way imaginable, which is you're sticking to the science, the way science is supposed to be, but you're also sticking just to facts. And quite honestly, this topic, along with like abortion and other topics, are such hot topics that people have emotional reactions to, and you are keeping it completely, strictly neutral, fact-based, etc., which is the way to do it, so that you don't necessarily get that reaction. People actually will look at it and react with hopefully some logical and critical thinking. So really well done on that, because you're one of the rare ones that actually does that correctly. So great job on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it is like you were saying, the anger that they have towards us, and this is just the regular, the public. If you read what they, write in newspapers and what they say in these news reports, they'll say these people are going to kill you because they're not vaccinating their kids. Their kids are going to kill your kids. So they've angered people so much to the point where they won't even listen. Like, we can't even have a conversation, which is awful, and we're seeing like a greater divide every day, whether it's politically on this issue and all kinds of things. And I think the reason why that divide's been created is because there are a lot of valid reasons to question the vaccine program. I mean, for anybody to think that it's perfect and there's no room for improvement, that's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And but yeah, that's why that anger's there, and really finding a way to cut through that and get people to actually, stop and listen and have a conversation is what I'm always trying to do.
Completely. So the next thing I ask of you is, you're in California, and obviously across the country it's very different in different states, and there's exemptions in every state. Now, you were obviously, most notably, I saw you with 276 came out. Can you just describe a little bit for a lot of the viewers out there who might be in a state where they haven't come to that state yet, and we actually have different exemptions in different states, which we're still completely a little more free on. What is it like in California, like a parent like yourself who's involved with this, to get boxed or backed into a corner where not only philosophical is taken away, I don't believe there's a religious one for you guys at all, and then now they basically took out the medical. Now, some people will say, oh, well, just do this or just do this. But what is it like there as a parent to be backed into a corner, no matter what you believe and feel about vaccines, but they're putting laws in place that back you into a corner? Just give them your response on that, because I think a lot of people don't have a good reality of what that feels like.
Right. Well, we've had exemptions from vaccinations pretty much since the very beginning. Even right after the polio vaccine came out, our different states had said we should have an exemption. This shouldn't be forced. So there's a mandate, to attend school and things like that. But there's an exemption, something that you can fill out and say, this goes against my religion, or philosophically I don't agree with this, or medically I don't agree with this. And this is how we've done things in the United States for a very long time. There's actually only 2 states that didn't really have these exemptions, and that was West Virginia and Mississippi. But all 48 other states, we've always had these exemptions. And so now, over the last several years, and this is primarily coming from the Democratic Party, is that they're starting these bills to remove these exemptions that we've had for so very long. And really, vaccination rates are at an all-time high. And they're still removing these exemptions and having them removed. And so, yeah, we're losing the philosophical, we're losing the religious exemption, which is pretty crazy, considering that we came and started this country for freedom of religion. That's why we came here. And now we're seeing in a lot of states that freedom has now been taken from them. So there are vaccines that are made from abortions, a few of the vaccines on the kids' schedule. And obviously, there's a lot of people who are religious who don't believe in abortion. And those people should be able to opt out and still have their children go to school. They don't have that option in a lot of states. And so that's sort of what's happening right now in California. They just got rid of they've made it almost impossible to get a medical exemption, is what they've done. So they'll say they didn't remove it. But so the problem is they kind of say, well, just homeschool your kid, now. So if you could either get your child vaccinated or you can homeschool them. And of course, the reality is, not everybody can do that. Not everybody can afford that. And the single mom taking care of her kids, there's no way she can do that. And it's really, like you said, they're backing people into a corner where they have no options. And it's just really hard to believe. We're not living in an age where measles is killing tons of people. I think we've lost 1 or 2 people from measles over the last 2 decades. This is something that's classified as a skin rash. And even the couple of people that did die from it, they had comorbid conditions, kind of similar to coronavirus.
Right.
Where, we're hearing people call it a coronavirus death, but they were already on their deathbed.
Right.
So it's really, it's unnecessary legislation. We're really not in a place where we need anything like this. And and it's bad. It's coming to all the states, and I think. They've gotten New York, they've gotten California. I think after they get Texas and Florida, which I think is going to be the focus next year, After that, I think they're just going to like nationally strip all these rights away from us as far as opting out from vaccination. And I mean, considering this is like a tax-free product, a liability-free product with with mandates, they don't even have to advertise these things. It's absolute insanity. So anybody living in any other states, if you really care about this, which you should, because it will go up the chain. Even though we're talking about exemptions for children, whether you have children or not, adult mandates are coming. And obviously, we might be looking at a coronavirus mandate next year. So it is important to get involved and to let your legislators know in your state that you don't want your rights taken away. You want to be able to make these decisions for yourself.
Yeah, beautifully said. Now, interesting in California, and I'll go down this road a little bit, is you have a certain senator out there who is, let's just call him Dr. Evil. You've had a few run-ins. You've had a few run-ins with Pan. Give us your back. Just give us a kind of a viewpoint on that. What has he been? Obviously, I only see the media of him. I don't know what he's like in person, but I'm assuming he's just basically a big pharma bought politician. But what has it been like to actually, like, in reality, deal with him in California and the legislation he puts forward?
Yeah, so he was the one that was behind both SB 277 and SB 276 in California. So 277 taking away the philosophical exemption, and 276 taking away the medical exemption, basically. My first experience with him in 2015 was through 277, and I sat through all these hearings for this bill, and I would see, and these videos exist. There are videos of these entire hearings online and on the Capitol website, where he would be faced with a decision at a hearing, and he would stop and he would go talk to somebody and then come back and make his final decision. The person that he would talk to was the pharmaceutical lobbyist.
Really? I didn't know that.
He's got to go. Yeah, it's right there, Jody Hicks. So he'd go over and talk to her, and then he makes his decision. So, I mean, it's kind of obvious who's running the show in a situation like this. I mean, these representatives, they're supposed to be representing us, not a pharmaceutical company that stands to gain financially by bills like this. And so, yeah, right away I realized he was bought, and he was saying some things he would say that were outright lies. He's sort of known as a liar. I mean, anybody who knows Senator Pan, they will say liar. He's just known as that guy. And sometimes, when he's not lying, he's deceiving. He does this thing, and he's gotten really good with this, especially with 276, where he says something without saying it. Like he comes around, he almost says something, and he doesn't, and then he takes a side street. It's almost like he has people thinking he said something that he hasn't said, and he's just been getting away with it. And it looks like he's been a big bully for other legislators, and really getting his yes votes for his bills. And so yeah, I've been on him. I created a T-shirt that has his face on it, and it says liar across his eyes. And on the back, I have 5 things that are known lies, quotes that he said that are absolutely untrue on the back. I went and caught him at the Science March in Washington, D.C. in 2017, and I had a sign like that had his face and liar on it, and I followed him for about a half an hour, peacefully, but followed him for a half an hour. He asked the police to stop me and send me away, and they had to explain to Senator Pan what the First Amendment was, and that if I was not harming him, that I had every right to be out there and express my opinion about him. And at one point, I asked him a question on camera in the hallway at the Capitol, and he got really upset with me. It was a fine question, but he started to answer it, and I think he realized after he answered the question he probably shouldn't have gone on the record saying what he did, and he grabbed my arm and started to yank me down the hallway like he was going to walk me out of the Capitol like a child. And I had to ask him multiple times to get his hands off of me. And of course, that was on both my camera and the surveillance video in the Capitol. And I tried to press charges against him, and I mean, he didn't harm me, but at the same time, it's not appropriate for him to lay his hands on me, go yanking me around. And had I done that to him, I would have been in lockup that night. So I did try to press charges against him after doing that, and then funny thing is they decided to charge me with a crime for eavesdropping for being doing a live broadcast while I was in the Capitol. So it's just, which I'm still fighting. That was March of 2017. I'm still I'm taking that all the way to trial because it's just absurd. And then of course, I was at the Science March in Sacramento last year, May the 4th last year, and and I'd already gotten him at the Science March in D.C. 2 years prior, so he had heavy-duty security with him, and they had their earpieces on, and they're looking around, they're making sure nobody's there. I'm sure I was one of the people they were looking for. So since it was May the 4th last year, I showed up in a stormtrooper costume.
I saw that.
With a Science March sign. And so I came over, and they saw me, and they get in, take a picture. He takes a picture with me. He has no idea it's me, in the suit. He puts it on his Twitter account, and then when he goes up to give his speech at the Science March, I come over and I rip the cover off my sign to show once again the picture with his face on it, lyre across his eyes, and then on the back I had a message for the people at the Science March that said vaccines are not placebo safety tested. So yeah, I mean those are just some of my encounters with him. I've been on him, several more times than that. But if anybody wants to check any of that material out, you can look me up on YouTube under Joshua Coleman, and there's some pretty entertaining videos. All that stuff's documented, so it's some entertaining stuff.
It was very well done. Now, does anybody have you guys created any sort of strategy or organization on how to possibly get him out of office, run against him, anything like that? Or is it so strong with him and his funding that it's creating a problem of getting him out of office?
Oh yeah, we're a blue state in California, and the only person that could win against him would be a Democrat, and a lot of our community doesn't seem to understand that. I'm registered as a Republican. A lot of the people in the medical choice community are Republicans, and when I would talk about this, we need to run a Democrat if we want to get him out. They're like, you're crazy. We're not doing that. And I'm like, well, we just got to get this guy out. This is the only way. So he won once again last year, and I had done exit polls outside of one of the largest polling areas in Sacramento. And so I would ask people who they voted for the Senate seat. And, it was funny, and of course this is also online, the video of this, is the Republicans generally knew who they voted for. They knew the name of the person. And some of the Democrats knew the name of Senator Pan. Most of the Democrats would come out saying, oh, shoot, who did I vote for? They didn't know. They just voted at the poll, and they're coming out, and they don't remember who they voted for. And I'd say, did you vote for the Democrat? And they're like, yeah. So that's the reality of what goes on, and not to say Republicans don't do that as well.
Right.
But that's what was going on with the Democrats. They were voting for the D. They saw the D, and that's what they checked that box. And it's right there on video. All these people, they didn't even know his name, so they don't even know who he's voting for. And that's something we just see. I think it almost seems like it's more from the Democratic Party, where they're just like, vote, everybody go vote. They want you to just go vote. And they know it's almost like I want everybody to vote, but I want them to vote with education about what they're voting for and who they're voting for. And I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you get educated about certain people, you may sometimes vote for the other party, depending on what that person is all about and what they're doing. So you have to educate yourself. And again, I think that's why the Democrats, they're just like, go vote, because they know a lot of these people are lazy that are going to go vote Democrat, and they'll just vote they'll check the D boxes, and that's good for them.
Totally. It makes sense, and it's almost, again, even for me, it's shocking that anyone would have that mentality going in and coming out. But also, I agree, 100% is, even registered as a conservative Republican myself, the whole point is you educate yourself on who's running, what their values are. And if there's a Democrat, if there's a Libertarian, if there's an Independent, I don't care. If they have good values, good policies, good ideas, then you roll with that, because this is not about a label. This is about actually creating a sound environment for all of us to live in that actually supports humanity. Really, at the end of the day, that's what it is. Now, were you also involved in the Jimmy Kimmel show where something went. So not everyone knows. I saw that the night, I think, day after it happened. Give everyone a little bit of a background on what you did there, because I think that honestly was one of the most brilliant things you guys did.
Okay, yeah. So there's sort of three incidences there. I'll try to run through them pretty quick. So the very first time, I knew that Kristen Bell was going to be at Jimmy Kimmel for the Frozen 2 premiere, and I knew about this like long in advance because Frozen, of course, is a Disney movie. Disney always premieres their movies at the El Capitan Theater, which is in Hollywood. And right next door is where they do Jimmy Kimmel, and Jimmy Kimmel is on the I think it's ABC, which is also owned by Disney.
Right.
So I knew there would be the premiere, and then Kristen Bell would in all likelihood be doing her interview at Jimmy Kimmel on the same day. Now, Jimmy Kimmel has been very hateful and hurtful towards people who don't vaccinate their kids,
right.
AKA the anti-vaxxers, which, of course, is this name they like to call us, even though the majority of the people that don't vaccinate, the ones that are called anti-vaxxers, we call them ex-vaxxers. They're people that have been impacted negatively by the vaccine program and stopped.
Right.
So I think there's this perspective that anti-vaxxers are people that are unvaccinated, didn't vaccinate their kids.
It's like the word conspiracy.
95%. Go ahead.
It's like the word conspiracy. Same thing. It's used as a negative. Right. It's a negative word to push somebody down and suppress them down, when in reality that's not a good term. But yeah, go ahead. You're totally right.
Yeah, they just assume it's like somebody who is a conspiracy theorist who never vaccinated their kids. Right. And that's really not the truth. And really there is a lot of science and education that goes in on. Like if you'll talk to any of these moms and dads who are about having choice or are currently not vaccinating their kids any longer, you'd be surprised. They'll sound like a doctor, the stuff that they know.
True.
So yeah, so Jimmy Kimmel has said some really hurtful, hateful things about anti-vaxxers. He did a whole bit on it, really just one of those bits just to infuriate people. And Kristen Bell's done the same thing. So this, to me, was like a prime opportunity, like let's go get them both. So we went out there with our vaccine informational signs, and so we basically protested in front of Jimmy Kimmel, his building, where they do the lives. And then a couple hours later, the Frozen 2 premiere happened, and then we went over there, and we moved over there. Now we're doing our protest in front of that one, in front of the thing for Kristen Bell. And then the show began inside, and what Jimmy Kimmel didn't know is we had two activists inside the building. And so in the middle of the interview that Jimmy Kimmel's doing with Kristen Bell, our activists stand up and call Kristen Bell out on some of the hate speech that she's had towards our community. And of course they had to stop rolling the cameras. and then our activists just went to leave. They didn't get escorted out. They said their piece, stood up, interrupted the broadcast, and started to walk out. And security grabbed them and manhandled these two women and really hurt them. We had we have an audio recording of what happened, and it was awful. There was a security guard who represented himself as a police officer, told him they were under arrest, which of course he wasn't a police officer. They weren't under arrest, and the police came and no charges were pressed. So that was the first time, and really for me, with the way the security acted towards these two females, these big security guys, I think it kind of seemed like they thought they were sending a message, like, don't come back. This is what happens when you come to Kimmel and mess around. So for me, I'm going, well, we're going back. This is not the end. We're going to go back and do this again.
Right.
We're not going to be bullied. And so we did. And so I had been, they don't usually, like Disney doesn't say when their premieres are, but you can kind of get an idea because the premiere is going to come out within a week or two before the release. And the El Capitan, they just play regular movies. But if there's a day with nothing playing, nothing scheduled, you can pretty much guarantee that's the day they're playing a premiere.
Makes
so
sense.
I thought it was like 2 weeks before Star Wars, the last film of the 9-film franchise, was playing. And so I went, oh, it's got to be this day because there's nothing scheduled. It's 2 weeks before. And so we thought, okay, we're going to go back. And we're gonna fill the theater with a bunch of people. So we got, I think it was like 32 people in the theater for this one. And it ended up, it was not the Star Wars premiere. It was, I think it was Spies in Disguise. So, we were hoping it would be like Harrison Ford or somebody in there, somebody big. But it was, the kid that plays Spider-Man. I forget his name. But anyways, he was the one that was in there that day, and that was fine. And so what we did that time is we chose to sort of approach it differently. So we weren't protesting outside. So they didn't have a clue that we were there. And our 32 activists, they had T-shirts on that said, however they were impacted by the vaccine program. So some had shirts that said, my son was injured by vaccines. And some had shirts that said, my daughter was injured by vaccines. And on the back, it all said, stop the discrimination. And so what they did is they were cued by Olivia Mikos in the theater right in the middle of an interview, once again, while they're live, to all stand up peacefully and quietly. And, of course, they had shirts over their shirts, and then kind of reveal what they were all wearing. And the 32 of them stood there silently. And, apparently the producers of the show were like, holy cow. And they went, cut, and they told Jimmy to cut, and Jimmy's going, I guess we're cutting. I don't know why. And then he looked into the theater and went, oh, man. And they were asked to leave, and they all left peacefully and quietly. And so that was sort of the second time we got him. And then I saw that Jimmy Kimmel he had released a children's book.
Yep.
And he was doing a book signing. And this isn't, I live in Sacramento, and this is in Southern California. So this is like a 6-7 hour drive from me. And I just thought, oh, here's my opportunity, to get face to face with this guy. And so, I went down, I drove down, I bought tickets to the thing, bought a book, got there early and waited in line. And a friend of mine, Melissa Floyd, also showed up. So I'm there, and I've got like a GoPro strapped to my chest, and I'm ready to really give it to him. And she's telling me, like, well, maybe you should come at him differently. Maybe you should just talk to him father to father, and instead of going so aggressively.
Sure.
And I was very hesitant, of course, because I really wanted to. I was my head. I was almost like more thinking about having like a sensational video instead of like really like trying to get to this guy. And of course, she was right. And so by the time I got up there, I'd been convinced. And I had brought an 8x10 photo of my sons. And of course, my one son is in a wheelchair, and the other boy is fine, standing next to him. So he opens up the book to sign it, and he sees the picture in there, and he starts asking. He pulls it right out, and he's asking me about my children, and oh, you came all the way from Sacramento for this. And then I had told him, I've heard what you've said about anti-vaxxers. And I told him, I really don't think you know who you're talking about when you say things like that. And I explained to him, it's people like me, people that my child is vaccine injured. And, and these are a lot of the people that aren't vaccinated. We've been impacted negatively. And what you're saying is very hurtful and hateful. And so I went back and forth with him a bit. And, everybody else was getting about 30 seconds with Jimmy, and kind of coming, getting a signature, and going off. I wasn't even doing photos with anybody. It was very, very quick. So he gave me several minutes, and we had a nice back and forth. And security came over. One of his producers came over, and he kind of said, "Hey, I want to talk to this guy." And so we had a nice dialogue back and forth. I certainly didn't convince him that vaccines are potentially harmful, but he did say that he had autism in his family, and that the people in his family, those people in his family, believed that had been caused by vaccination.
Wow.
And in the end, we ended. He shook my hand, and he thanked me for talking to him civilly, and he said that he would try to be more sensitive in the future going forward about this issue. And I believed him, and I'll be the first person to call BS on anyone. But he really, he seemed to listen. He seemed to hear me, and I at that point I kind of said, okay guys, I guess we're going to stop with Kimmel for now. As long as he's not doing this any longer, I think we're done. Maybe I've communicated to him, and maybe he's heard me, and maybe this is over. So he hasn't done anything bashing anti-vaxxers since then. So hopefully he has been spoken to. But yeah. Those are the three incidences, and that was a wild ride.
Well, that was well done. It was so brilliantly done. I know you had some help with going in that angle, but obviously it's so well done. And yeah, no matter what we do, whether it is the vaccine movement, whether it's a medication movement or a law movement or whatever it is, yes, we can get angry, but we also have to go at it from that viewpoint. Because if you had gone at him just attacking, I mean, you would have been ushered out there so fast, your head would have spun. And so the fact that you did that, I mean, you not necessarily turned him, but the seed was planted for him to possibly grow and understand it over a long period of time. So really well done. But as we head out today, obviously the COVID thing is a big deal. The vaccine thing, mandatory vaccines, etc. And obviously we're all hoping we don't go down this road of mandatory vaccines, and we're going to fight for it. But based on what you've been doing in the past with obviously just the vaccine movement in itself, and then obviously with this now coming to California and them pushing hard on California with different counties doing even crazier things than this, what is your message to people, and what do you see as we move into the next couple of years on how we tackle this? Because you're a sane voice of protesting, meaning there's a lot of people out there doing it the very wrong way, but you've been doing it the very correct way, and you've been gaining a lot of momentum. What kind of message can you give, and what do you see for our future with this?
Well, I see them using fear to take our rights away. I think that's going to be a big part of what's going on here, whether that was the agenda from the beginning or that's a piggybacked agenda that's just been tagged on here. What we're finding in the health choice community, we're seeing what we've seen over the last 50 years with vaccination and the last 100 years of vaccination, which is just a lot of exaggerating and a lot of fudging the numbers and cherry picking data and manipulating things for fear in order to take away rights and in order to generate profits. And so that's a lot of what's going on here. Once again, I believe with the coronavirus, I was very hesitant to say anything from the beginning, even though right from the beginning with the coronavirus, I thought, oh man, this looks like just more of the same, more just like what we've seen with measles. And now we're at a certain point where I believe it is the same thing. I think we're seeing the data coming out that we're it's like 0.1 or 0.3 mortality from measles. From coronavirus. It's very, very low. If you're healthy and if you have a healthy immune system, you'll be just fine. This is the only time in the history of the world that we've ever quarantined the healthy.
Right.
I think people, they're familiar with the word quarantine, so they think, okay, that's what we do. This is not what we do. We quarantine the sick, or we quarantine the people who are at risk. We don't quarantine the healthy. And so I really encourage people to listen, listen to the data, not be locked in on some idea that they have from something that they've seen, because there's a lot of information going around, and really like critically thinking. And then of course also when you're talking to other people, doing it with decorum and a calm state of mind, because if you want to get something through to somebody, you really have to be nice, and sometimes it's okay to step away from a conversation when it gets escalated and just say, let's just stop, let's just put a pin in this, and maybe we'll talk about it another day. And it's not, you don't have to fight to be right, because it's not, we want to get somewhere. We all want to unite and protect our rights, and really that's what we're seeing right now. I mean, we're seeing a tyrannical government really doing things that's never been done, and really, I mean, we're looking at a really scary time to have our rights stripped away. And what we need to do as a people is unite and say no. And it's very easy to do, but we all have to be united to do that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you being so sane on this, and I'm assuming you have plenty more fight in you and protest in you. Is there anything coming up out of nowhere? I believe there's something, is it June or July that you guys have going on? It's on your YouTube channel. Promote that for me so everyone knows what you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. We have an event coming up on June 23rd, and so what I'm basically seeing, part of this coronavirus thing, they've already really, really censored our community, and there's like a short part of a documentary called Plandemic that's out right now, that keeps getting deleted off every platform, YouTube, Facebook. So we're already very, very censored and shadow banned. I think that they're going to completely try to deplatform us this year. I think is going to happen.
I agree.
And so the June 23rd event, it's basically focused on the hate speech, discrimination, and censorship of our group. And I mean that is what's happening. If you look and you find my video for it, you can find it on my Facebook page, Joshua Coleman, or We Are Joshua Coleman Facebook page. I actually show a lot of clips of the actual hate speech towards our group, the discrimination and the censorship. They're blatantly talking about the censorship and saying it needs to be even more so. These are three ugly words. These are three words that you would say to anybody on the street. Is hate speech okay? Is discrimination okay? Is censorship okay? And the average American's going to say absolutely not, but that is what's happening to us. And so this demonstration that we're doing on June 23rd at the Sacramento Capitol is focused on these three things and saying this needs to stop. It's never okay. It was not okay when it was being done during the Civil Rights Movement or at any time in history, and it's not okay to do now. And we've come way too far, and we are way too intelligent of a species to be, reliving history once again. And so we're really just calling for a stop to this. And we're also going to be honoring the legislators last year for SB 276 that voted no on the bill.
Nice.
And that spoke out for us, and were a really great voice for us at the Capitol. So it's just a really positive event, and we're encouraging everybody to come out. And if you want more information on it, and actually even the video is at tinyurl.com/ a call for change.
Great.
So tinyurl.com / a call for change.
Great. We'll post that. We'll post that link in too. You post it over on your side. We'll post it on our side. We'll get that out there, and that's fantastic. And I really appreciate that. Thank you for continuing to do what you do. Obviously, you're a warrior. You are a patriot. You are the epitome of that, and I appreciate you fighting for kids, fighting for humanity. You do an amazing job. Where can everyone find you out there so they can follow you and know what's going on at all times?
Well, it's not easy, so don't give up.
Right.
So my personal page is Joshua Coleman. So I'm filled up with friends on Facebook, but you can follow me. Sometimes the follow button's not there. And also I have a Facebook page where I house a lot of videos, and so that's called We Are Joshua Coleman. So you should be able to like and follow that page. But because of the shadow banning, oftentimes you're just going to have to visit my page to see the new content. Like, my content will not come up in your feed. Even if you've followed me or if you've liked the page, it will not come up. You're going to have to remember to go there every week or two and just see what's happening and what maybe new content there is. And also, I have a page on Instagram called V is for Vaccine, and so that's a lot of the campaign with the signs. We've made national news a few times, and so we'll have like pictures from our events and from the news broadcasts and all that stuff there. So yeah, look for us over there.
Awesome, Josh. I appreciate everything you're doing again, and it was very actually nice to meet you for the first time, even though across the camera. But I've followed your work. I've been very fascinated with it. I think you're doing an amazing job in how you go about it. So it's been a pleasure to talk with you. And if you ever need any support from our side, we will be there for you. But really great job on saving tons and tons of kids. You're doing awesome. Keep being what you are, because you are moving the dial, man. I appreciate it. And if you guys can share this, if you can put it out there, Josh is very popular, so there's a huge audience out there. Make this stuff go viral. This is actually what is going to change our country and the world, as we keep putting out this positive information, just educating people. It's really amazing. But again, thank you very much, Josh, for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, great. This is Revolution Network. Dr. Jason Dean, we appreciate it. Have an amazing Thursday. And again, push this out there and support everything Josh is doing. Have a great day. Be well. Stay vigilant and be patriots. Take care. Bye-bye.